What's going on YouTube? So a few years ago, Honda brought back the classic nameplate Honda Passport. And now we're seeing some noteworthy changes for this refreshed 2024 model.
And we've actually had the chance to test out this updated Passport TrailSport for the last 7 days to really extensively check out those changes.
So, with a enhanced off-road capable TrailSport model, updated interior, and a new Black Edition model, is this the midsize SUV for you? Well, let's go ahead and find out. All right, it's time to start off with our spec dump. So under the hood, we're not seeing any changes for 2024. That means we'll continue to find the 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine. Power output on this is 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque.
We have a 9-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive is standard across the board, and that means your fuel economy is coming in at 21 miles a gallon combined. Now, of course, we will also talk about our real-world fuel economy over the last 7 days in the test drive portion, so stay tuned for that.
Right, and while we're on that test drive later on in this video, we're going to get things like our sound level rating so that we can compare that to all of this model's rivals on carconfections.com, as well as the outgoing generation. But let's first close up the hood here and take a look at the exterior changes. All right, so starting out here in the front, we're not going to see any huge changes in terms of our front end design for 2024. What you'll continue to find is a tough, rugged look that's pretty boxy in the overall appearance since that 2022 exterior refresh that gave it the new grille. Each of your 3 trim levels is going to have different things going on with the grille that slightly revise the overall look. We'll include some pictures of that. But here with the TrailSport model, as you can see, we've got the gray finish. And if you choose the new trim level for 2024 called the Black Edition, that is also going to get you a different finish, which is going to include black bars that go across the grille, and it'll continue to have the black piece that runs across the top and into our headlights. Now, let's talk a little bit about those headlights. So you are going to see a standard LED low beam projector headlight right there. You also have an LED daytime running light that kind of arches across the top. However, we actually have a halogen reflector high beam. I'm disappointed that that does continue on for 2024, especially considering that before 2022, this was a full LED unit. Down below, we also have our separated turn signal indicator, and then all but your base model will come with the LED fog lamps. Now, in terms of our ground clearance, the TrailSport model does not have more ground clearance than the other trim levels, but all the models do have quite a bit at 8.1 inches. Now, as you move around to the rear design, you're going to continue to find that classic Passport design. Nothing has changed here for 2024, so I'm going to go ahead and hop inside. We'll do that taillight demonstration now.
Yeah, because here at Car Confections, we do want to show you if all of the taillight elements are LED. So Drew went ahead and tapped the brake light. We do have an LED brake light. We have an incandescent turn signal, and then we have an incandescent reverse light down here at the very bottom. I really would have liked for Honda to update this taillight, make it a little bit more modern for the refresh. However, we do still have the same one this year. We have this black piece going through the center. Of course, we have our big TrailSport and all-wheel drive branding. For the TrailSport specifically, we do have this silver piece to give it that more off-road boxy shape. And as far as your tow rating is concerned, it's a very impressive 5,000 pounds. And you're also going to have these really nice, large diameter exhaust outlets. These honestly look like they're straight off of an Acura.
Now, as we move on to our wheel area, this has some important things I need to talk about, especially regarding this TrailSport model. So for 2024, you are going to have, for the very first time, all-terrain tires wrapped around these 18-inch alloy wheels. As you can see, a nice rugged look to these, and this is going to, of course, give you more capability off-road. Another thing that will give you more off-road capability for 2024 is the fact that this now has a special off-road tuned suspension versus the other trim levels. But I do want you to keep in mind that it still does not add the recovery hooks or the real metal skid plates from the 2024 Pilot TrailSport. Now, in terms of what your other 2 models will have, those will have 20-inch alloy wheels with different finishes. Now, coming up here to our mirrors, we do have the gloss black finish for both the TrailSport and the Black Edition model. And in terms of your features, you are going to have standard blind spot monitoring as well as standard heating. As we move up the trim structures, we get power folding and then auto dimming on the top model.
Now here at the side of the refreshed Passport, you're not going to see a ton of overall design changes. It still comes in at 189.1 inches in overall length, which is about 10 inches shorter than the Honda Pilot for reference. Now one thing I do want to talk about in terms of changes would be your color choices. We have a new diffuse sky pearl paint color that is TrailSport exclusive. We've seen that on the Pilot model. Now it's going to be here on the Passport. And I do also want to point out, if you choose that new Black Edition trim level, you will have 4 color choices. Now, as far as your safety systems are concerned, this is another area where Honda has always done well with the Passport, and that's going to continue for 2024. You're getting all 4 of your active safety features as standard equipment. But guys, that's it for the exterior changes. There are some changes on the inside, so let's check that out. But first,
if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now let's head inside the cabin. First, we'll of course take a quick look at the key fob. This is our typical Honda key fob, actually the little bit of an older design versus the Pebble look, but we still have smart entry as well as remote start built in for all trim levels. Getting inside is as simple as reaching behind the handle. That's going to unlock the door. And then take a look inside the interior. Those with a keen eye might immediately notice the interior change. That is the most meaningful inside the cabin, but we're going to talk about that in just a second after we talk about material options and color selection. So every Passport will come standard with real leather. If you choose the EXL trim level, you're going to have the choice between black, gray, or brown. However, the other 2 trim levels will come with just black leather. On the TrailSport, as we have today, this is going to give us orange accent stitching through the seats as well as throughout the rest of the cabin. On the Black Edition, it's going to be red accent stitching, and I do like the TrailSport up there in the headrest. As far as the seats themselves, they're going to be 10-way power adjusting across the board with 2-way lumbar support and standard memory seats as well. But let's go ahead and climb inside. When you get inside, you do get a little animation up there on the screen. And let's talk about the overall cabin materials. In terms of the design and materials, they're going to be the same for 2024. So we do have a soft touch material across our armrest as well as up here and along the top. As we go to the upper dash, again, a nice soft touch plastic will go through here with a stitching detail. We have a faux aluminum, which is going to act as our trim piece running through the center section, and then also down here on our center console, although I will point out there's no padding along the sides of this. Now to fire it up, of course, put your foot on the brake and press the standard push button start. Now that we've fired it up, let's go ahead and take a look at our gauge cluster. This is the older style Honda gauge cluster setup here. So we've got a 7-inch multi-function display in the middle, which you can reconfigure to several different views through here. And then you've got your 2 analog gauges out on the outside edges. Now, as far as the steering wheel, we do have the perforated leather wrapped steering wheel. This is going to be included actually on all versions of the Passport. You have heating on both the TrailSport and the Black Edition model. The Black Edition will also have rain sensing wipers, and the wheel will be manual tilt and telescoping across the lineup. But let's not waste any time. Let's get to a noteworthy change inside of this Passport, and that is a new center console. So you might be noticing we don't have that kind of funky minivan-like fold-down armrest anymore. Instead, we've got a more traditional arrangement. And let's see how big it is. It is quite large, spoiler alert. So this is Car Confections. We like to do a donut test. We see how many donuts will fit inside a center console. And guys, this one absolutely nails it. It has 19 donuts. That's heading up to almost 2 dozen donuts. So that's a lot for all the mouths that you can fit inside this vehicle. It's actually an identical rating as the Honda Pilot. And up in front, we have our 2 cup holders. We also have a enhanced size center area there, which can now hold 2 smartphones side by side, although the person on the left-hand side is the only one that's going to be getting a charge. Now, coming back to the shifter, we have Honda's push-button style shifter. Just going to press the D for drive. You do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel. R is for reverse, of course, and you will find a backup camera with active trajectory and parking sensors on all trim levels. You also have 3 different views you can choose between, but no 360-degree camera option. You don't have an electronic parking brake, so that's kind of an old school touch, but you do have the foot activated style right there. And then you've got some of your drive mode controls right here behind there. Moving above here, they haven't messed with the climate control setup, so it continues to be a 3-zone automatic climate arrangement. Very simple to use with these large physical buttons and knobs. You'll also find 3-stage heated seats down here. If you want seat ventilation though, you will need to choose the high-end Black Edition trim level. And let's come up here and take a sample of the audio system. So with this model, Honda's going to be offering 2 different sound system arrangements. You're going to have a bass sound system, which is coming in at 7 speakers, and then you've got the upgraded 10-speaker sound system for just the Black Edition. Since this is the TrailSport, let's give that a sample now. Overall sound quality is pretty decent, although I do wish they offered a branded sound system on the top-end Black Edition model like they do on the Honda Pilot. And speaking of things that they have on the Honda Pilot that we don't have on the updated Passport, is going to be our display system with the new Honda system. So what we're looking at continues to be an older style version of the software. This is just going to be an 8-inch display standard on all 3 trim levels. And if you've paid attention to our channel, you know we've also done a first look of the updated 2024 Honda Ridgeline. And that model also gets an updated 9-inch infotainment screen with new software and some new features such as wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. This does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but you're going to have to physically connect with a USB port. And then we have the Garmin-based navigation system on board. Up top here, we've got an auto-dimming mirror. 3 HomeLink universal remotes are built in. And then all versions of the Passport will come with this sunroof.
Now really what this Passport does best is really maximize space. You saw it in the front. We have a gigantic center console, and we're also going to have a gigantic rear seat as well. We're sitting at about 40 inches of legroom and about 40 inches of headroom. So to be exact, it's 39.6 inches of legroom, but still very, very impressive. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and I'm 5'9", and we're sitting at about 10 inches of knee space. Very impressive. My feet can also slide up underneath the seat, and you can also slide these seats forward and back as well as recline them. So you can really maximize the amount of comfort that you're going to have in this Passport, and I will say all the seats inside this cabin are very, very comfortable. Now here in the center, we do have vents. You're noticing this right here. This actually was climate controls when it was in a Pilot model. However, for the Passport, they actually deleted your rear climate controls, so even though you do have 3-zone climate, you can just control it from the front. And then down below that, we do have a household style outlet, which is quite nice. We also have 2 USB ports. These are a new Type-C variety. If we fold down the center armrest, we do have 2 cup holders inside of here. And I want to point out, if you choose that top-end Black Edition model, you can also have heated rear seats as a standard feature. Now turning to the door trim. The door trim is also super practical. First of all, we have a rear window sunshade up top on TrailSport and Black Edition models, so that's a nice premium touch. As far as other things, material-wise, we do have a hard touch upper part. However, we're going to have leather on all the armrest portion. We also do have 2 cup holders, and as you can see, I have my Stanley right there in the cup holders. You could actually fit 2 Stanleys in each door trim. Very impressive cup holders. And then down the very bottom, we also have a little bit of door storage. And walking up to the tailgate of the Passport, we do have a power tailgate as standard equipment. However, if you choose the Black Edition model, you will also get the foot activation. Now, as far as this cargo area is concerned, my, oh my, is there a lot of space in this Passport. So just like I said, this thing really maximizes that practicality aspect. 41.2 cubic feet of cargo capacity behind the second row seats. If I conveniently press these buttons that are located on both the sides, I can expand that all the way up to 77 0.7 cubic feet of cargo capacity. That's only about 10 cubic foot less than the bigger brother Honda Pilot, which is a full 10 inches longer than this. So very impressive practicality when you choose this model. It's really going to blow everything out when it comes to its competition in this segment with cargo space. Now, I do also want to go ahead and give you those cargo figures, because I know a lot of you guys really care about certain things such as the cargo length. So from the driver's seat, adjusted to someone who's 5'8", to the rear of the cargo area, we're sitting at 80 inches of length. That is very impressive. And let's go ahead and get the cargo width as well. As far as the cargo width is concerned, we are sitting at about 48 inches wide, so 4 foot wide. Now, as far as other things, I do want to lift up the cargo floor. Inside of here, you're going to find additional space, quite a lot of it as well. And then we're also going to have a 12-volt power outlet. I do also want to commend Honda on these simple buttons to fold the second row. Well, guys, we're behind the wheel of the 24 refreshed Honda Passport. We can't wait to highlight some of those changes for the 24 refresh, as well as the other things that we cover in all of our test drives, including getting our signature sound level reading. So let's go ahead and start with a hard acceleration.
All right. That was an acceleration up to 60 miles per hour.
Not bad.
Yeah. Now, as you can tell when I stomp on the gas like that, we've got a V6 on board. And it certainly has that classic Honda V6 sound. And it makes 280 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, as we mentioned in the spec dump. So that's plenty of power in this segment. Just like with three-row SUVs, in the two-row segment, we have seen a move towards a lot of turbocharged four cylinders in recent years.
Yep.
And this does keep it classic with that V6. I know a lot of you guys appreciate that.
I think it sounds pretty good. I don't know if they did something with that big Acura-looking exhaust in the back, but it sounds pretty darn good for this model.
As I accelerate out of that corner, let's also talk about the transmission. So that's not going to change for 2024. We continue to find the ZF supplied 9-speed automatic transmission. Now, we actually came into this Passport loan after having a Honda Pilot on loan previously, and I think it kind of highlights some of the differences between the two models. That, of course, has moved on to Honda's 10-speed automatic transmission. While they have made some refinements to this transmission over the years, it's still not quite as sure of itself as the 10-speed and the Pilot. So overall quality of this is going to be a little bit, I think, inferior to that, but overall, most of the time, it is pretty smooth these days and pretty crisp in its overall performance.
Yeah, and you do have standard all-wheel drive with this Passport, as I mentioned at the spec dump, which is a pretty cool feature to have as standard equipment. That is something that you do not get as standard equipment on the Pilot model.
Yeah, and this is, of course, torque vectoring all-wheel drive, and you do have the dedicated drive modes because this is a pretty rugged SUV in terms of how they market this with its capability. And so when you press the button right there on the center console, you'll notice you have snow, mud, and sand modes that help tune the all-wheel drive system and the throttle response for those specific scenarios.
All right, and now we've just accelerated to a smooth highway, and I want to talk a lot about the ride quality, because I honestly think that that is probably my favorite thing about the Passport, is just how comfortable it is. That and the space. It is incredibly comfortable when it comes to your ride quality. When you sit in this vehicle, you just feel at home, like you're in a sofa. The seats are so comfortable, and the suspension just does such a good job of just soaking up every bump in the road. Honestly, outside of very expensive luxury SUVs, the Passport and Pilot and stuff like that are going to be some of the vehicles with the best ride quality that you can get. I can just imagine the highway miles melting away when you drive this on a family vacation. All right, now that we're speeding up here, let's go ahead and get our sound level reading going 55 miles an hour. Before slowing down there, we're sitting at 56.4 decibels as our official Car Confections sound level reading for the refreshed Honda Passport. Now, this is an area that I certainly was very curious about testing out, because now we do have those all-terrain tires for this refreshed model. So one would think it's going to be a little bit louder than the pre-refresh, but we don't have to sit here and guess, because we can actually go to carconfections.com/sound level readings, and on our website we have all of our sound level readings for every vehicle that we've sampled out, including the pre-refresh Passport as well as all this vehicle's rivals, and we are sitting at a very impressive sound level reading when it comes to the overall segment, pretty much middle of the pack. However, it is going to be a little bit louder than the 22 Honda Passport TrailSport that we actually tested on this exact same strip of road. That comes in at 54.7. So you are seeing about a decibel to a decibel and a half increase for having those all-terrain tires. So do keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, they're adding the additional capability for the TrailSport model, but you've got those other two trim levels to choose from if, say, you're not really going to use this for anything that involves light off-roading or anything like that, then you might want to look into buying that Black Edition or the EXL instead. And in particular, the Black Edition does have acoustic front glass as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good time for us to just go ahead and transition into our airball and slam dunk, our least favorite element and our favorite element. Drew, do you want to kick us off with our favorite element about this Honda Passport?
I would say that the slam dunk is going to be the space on board. This is just a really big offering in this class of vehicle. You've got space that's pretty similar to the three-row Pilot ultimately, and I think that is kind of a classic Passport thing that continues on this year.
Yeah, and as far as our airball is concerned, we do like that Honda has made some changes for this refresh. I like the center console a lot better. However, there are just some missed opportunities when it comes to what Honda could have done during this refresh to make this more competitive in its segment. For instance, the infotainment display, not really sure why they didn't go ahead and upgrade it to the latest Honda software with a wireless ability, even considering that the Honda Ridgeline has that. We don't have the latest gauge cluster design.
The lighting is exterior lighting is still incandescent. Yeah, there's just basically some missed opportunities. In essence, would be the best way to summarize that. They could have modernized this so much more than they chose to do.
And lastly, when it comes to fuel economy, you're probably curious as to how the V6 affects that. Of course, it is going to be a little bit worse fuel economy than some of those turbo four-cylinder rivals. We're sitting at 21 miles a gallon combined as rated by the EPA. And of course, we have had this for a week, and I mentioned that we're going to talk about our real-world fuel economy. We haven't concluded our week just yet, so we will insert a picture of our official 7-day real-world fuel economy once we get even more mileage on this vehicle to really test out what you're going to see in the real world. And as far as the last things to talk about, your warranty is going to be Honda's signature warranty, 3-year 36,000 miles for basic, 5-year 60,000 miles for powertrain. Additionally, Honda does also include 2 years of complimentary maintenance.
Now, we are, of course, driving on a country road, and I will briefly mention the driving dynamics. Of course, that is not a focus of this Passport. And I will say, again, coming from the Pilot directly, I think they've made some improvements going to the new platform, that this feels probably a little less agile, actually, than the larger Pilot overall. But the steering is pretty responsive. It's just very lightweight. And then also in terms of our auto start stop system, we do have one of those on board. They've done a good job of making that nice and smooth so that it doesn't really bother you in the day-to-day. But if you don't want it on, you can always turn it off with this button right here next to the shifter.
And let's talk pricing for the 24 refreshed Honda Passport. Now, prices this year are going to rise around $2,000. So in essence, Honda's charging about $100 for every additional donut that you could fit in the center console. $1,900, it's about the same. Now, that does mean we have a starting price of $41,900 for the EXL trim level. TrailSport's $44,500. Our Black Edition model is $47,970. Now, as far as this particular model as tested today, we are sitting at $46,330 as tested once we add in the $1,375 destination charge. And if you're looking to buy a Honda Passport or any new vehicle, we do want to remind you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. By going to our website, we have a tool that will connect you with local dealers in your area to get you the best price on your new vehicle. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealer negotiation. If you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in our video description. Well, guys, that's it for our in-depth review of the refreshed 2024 Honda Passport. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, of course, us doing the extensive 7-day test does allow us to get even more impressions than our typical reviews. So please hit that subscribe button down below, because by subscribing, you help give us more opportunities like this where we can actually have a car back at home for 7 days and live with it. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.